Hi everyone, my name is Becky Newdick. I'm the CEO and founder of Safer Waves. Safer Waves is a charity that was set up to support merchant seafarers who've experienced gender discrimination, sexual harassment or sexual assault whilst working at sea. I've got a short presentation to share with you. So I'll just share my screen now. So the reason we were set up in the first place, I started the organisation as a website, and it was really to recognise that there are unique challenges that seafarers face if they do experience these issues at sea. So sexual violence obviously needs quite a specialist approach, and we were inspired by the rape crisis centres and sexual assault referral centres in the UK and wanted to bring some of that to be more accessible to seafarers. So as I said, we are there for people who've experienced gender-based violence or discrimination, anything from sexual harassment all the way through to sexual assault and rape. One of the reasons that we set the organisation up in the first place was that people do seem to be prepared to talk about sexual harassment at sea, but actually what we were hearing described by others was sexual assault and was rape or was physical abuse, and we felt that it didn't fit under this label of sexual harassment, and we wanted to more accurately describe what seafarers were experiencing. So these are some of the unique challenges that seafarers face, which we believe means that seafarers actually are going to process these events quite differently because of that need to continue on with the contract, to just live with the situation as it is. So to start with, continuing to live and work with a perpetrator, which brings the situation into something more like domestic abuse. The rank structure means that a victim may need to continue answering to the person that's harassed or abused them, and that they may have very limited options for reporting. Isolation from family and friends. So if something happened ashore, I think the first thing that most people would do if they were going to tell anybody else would be to run it past a close friend and just say, look, this happened, what do you think? And get that perspective, that sort of peer support. And that's what's missing for seafarers. So at the time, they can't sort of offload this information. There's also very limited access to medical care. As you know, only passenger ships are likely to carry doctors, so being able to access forensic medical examinations, which might help with ongoing investigations, and being able to access STD and pregnancy tests, that's really difficult for seafarers. Even if they could access that on board, such as on medical cruise ships or RFA ships, for example, I'm sure there would be concerns around the confidentiality of that and who would find out that had taken place. Obviously, they also have limited access to law enforcement. You've got multiple jurisdictions involved, and that complicates matters, as well as actually getting a report to the police in a timely manner. Then there's the attitudes towards women working on board. And I'm going to show you a few comments from our survey later, which show why this can be an issue. And finally, something we were really aware of when setting up the website is that even if people did then want to seek support, if they're on a sort of rotation that's something like 3 months on, 1 month off, waiting lists are long for counselling at sexual abuse services, and most counsellors will want you to, you know, to commit to a certain time period. So it's not possible for a lot of people to seek support in that short time that they are on land. And I know there's other guests today that have found ways around this and ways to work with seafarers, and I think that's really encouraging. So these are some of the comments that came up during our survey. You know, for example, talking about attitudes to women on board, here's one: I was sexually assaulted on board and the captain had me removed from the ship the next day. And the sort of longer version of this comment was essentially that the captain said that he knew something bad would happen if they had a woman on board. So the blame was completely shifted to the victim, and the victim was removed from the situation rather than the perpetrator. I experienced sexual assault at sea. There was nowhere to go for support. As we said, that kind of isolated situation that you're in. There's various other comments there, but I do believe that seafarers, that they are in a unique situation, and these issues do complicate the way that seafarers have to recover from these incidents. I think it makes it a longer process to recover because they're having to push it all down and bury it so that they can get through their contract, and then it needs to be unpacked at a later date. So our current work that we're doing, we provide support and information via our website and social media. We provide seafarers with a safe platform to tell their stories, and we have got a few stories on our website, and people have contacted us to say it's helped them to read those stories. We provide an anonymous email support service, which is manned by volunteers that have had training from a rape crisis centre, also a suicide prevention charity. And so those volunteers, they work together in pairs and they read and respond to an email. And then the email is further approved by myself at the moment before it's sent to the service user. And they then have monthly supervision locally, which means that we can get the whole team together in person, which is really nice to support the volunteers. So we're also working with Devon and Cornwall Police on clarifying and simplifying reporting procedures for seafarers, so particularly for those on ships flying the UK flag. That's our starting point, of course. And that's really all about giving survivors a choice, because if sexual violence is taking away power from survivors, we want to try and give some of that power back to them so they've got choices. Regarding reporting, we would always say that the first mechanism would be to report through the ship's onboard management systems, and of course then that goes ashore to the company, but we wanted to make sure there was an option for seafarers to report if they couldn't go through that chain of command. So for example, if the captain was the perpetrator. We're also looking at giving presentations at nautical colleges, and we are hoping to create a sort of first response document for senior officers and management when they are responding to disclosures of sexual violence, because there's things that are helpful to say and there are things that could cause a victim to just shut down. And that first response, we believe, could be the difference between somebody then going on to make an official report or seeking further help for themselves. And if that first response that they receive is very supportive, they're more likely to do that. And we'd also like to work with frontline welfare workers. This is a little bit further into the future. So workers such as chaplains, ITF inspectors, to try and improve seafarer access to these specialised services. So if there are sexual assault referral centres in port cities, that we make sure in the rare event that it's required, that seafarers can be seen at those centres. And I'd just like to finish with this testimonial that one of our service users wrote for us. It's part of a longer testimonial. So when I eventually did email Safer Waves, I felt a real feeling of support and that I wasn't alone. Thanks to the supportive emails, I was able to finally lose some of the feelings of shame and was even able to share part of my story through the website, which hopefully can encourage others like me, as the stories that I read had done. Somewhere in that process, the power of what happened was gone, and it certainly has helped me start healing from what took place. And what I thought when we received this testimonial was, it was a really nice description of the sort of the journey that our service users go on, because she described she'd been the victim of multiple cases of sexual assault and sexual harassment at sea, and she described finding the website and, as she put it, lurking around the website, looking at the stories, looking to see if there was new stories, reading bits and pieces and seeing how it applied to her and that she wasn't by herself, and then finally finding the courage to email us and the benefit that that gave her. And we're really, really pleased to have been able to be part of that healing process that's obviously started in her. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for inviting us to speak today.